50 Game Dev.
So in this video we're going to be taking a look at some of my favourite Game Boy games. Now this channel's more about game development, but I thought to ease us into the channel, especially as soon as it has a focus on handheld games, we'd take a look at some of my favourite games from the Game Boy. So I'm not going to make it a top 10, I did record 10 originally thinking, you know, I'll bulk it out and make it a top 10, but I'm just going to talk about some of my favourite games from the system. So, the game I've been playing the most from the Game Boy recently is Super Mario Land. I completed it 3 times one day last week, that's how much I've been enjoying this game. Some people don't like this one because the controls aren't quite the same as other Super Mario games, but for me the controls are pretty spot on, they're quite reactive, it's not got that sort of skid, you know, when you come to a stop, there's like that deceleration you get with other Mario games. It doesn't have that so much, and I find that more precise as a control, but other people don't like that for some reason. And I can understand that, you know, it doesn't feel like Mario, but I do think it works slightly better as a platformer control, so yeah, I quite like it, but it's not for everyone. Anyway, the next game we're going to be looking at is Pokemon Yellow, so this was actually the first Pokemon game I owned. When you think about it, it's amazing that these sort of massive RPGs fit on these small Game Boy cartridges because, well, you wouldn't expect them to be able to pack such a grand adventure into such a small cartridge. But yeah, Pokemon Yellow, I didn't choose this one for any reason in particular, other than the fact this was my first Pokemon game. But it could have been Red or Blue just as easily. But I do like the idea that, you know, Pikachu follows you around and is part of your adventure the whole way through. Anyway, Super Mario Land 2. Now, I don't like this one as much as the first Super Mario Land. Like, I know it's a much longer game, I know there's much more about it and the physics are more refined, but for me, it doesn't quite hit the same as Super Mario Land, but it's a good game, it's well worth your time, I'd recommend playing through this one. So the next game we're looking at is probably no surprise to anyone, it's Tetris. Now apologies, the gameplay you see on screen will probably be stressing you out right now, it's not good Tetris gameplay. But anyway, this game released in 1989 and anyone who's played this game will tell you it's addictive. You can still pick up the original Tetris and have a lot of fun with it. Obviously there's new versions of Tetris like Tetris Effect Connected, but for me, the original still hits hard. You can go and pick that up and play it, and you can be playing for hours before you even notice it. I like to play it on the train. That's the other thing about a lot of these handheld games, you know. Very easy to pick up and play on the train or the bus, or whilst you're waiting for something. They were designed in such a way you can pick them up and play them, and then put the Game Boy back in your pocket and go and do other things, and then pick up the game again. So I like that, that's why I'm interested in handheld game design. So the next game we'll look at is Kirby's Dream Land. Now, this game is the first entry of the Kirby series, I believe, and it's a lot less refined than other entries. You know, you've not got the copy abilities, but what it is an excellent platformer. I think the version on screen is colorised. I don't know if that's the Game Boy colour palette or if this one was Super Game Boy enhanced in some way, but either way, it looks pretty good. Yeah, a lot of the games you see in this video, we've either got the Game Boy colour palette or they have the Super Game Boy, the Super Game Boy enhancements present. I think that's also the case for Metroid 2 Return of Samus. Now, this isn't a game I've actually completed yet, but it's actually next on the list for Game Boy games to complete. And just look at it, it looks like a proper Metroid game. This could easily be the sequel to Metroid on the NES. But yeah, this is the next game I intend to play through, and I think it looks fantastic, so yeah. What are some Game Boy games you guys like playing? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching.